Welcome, everyone. You are about to embark on a journey through the universe as you indulge in this extraordinary essence of enlightened, empowered, evolved. Let the show begin in five, four, three, two, one.
Just in time. Greetings, everyone. I'm Luke Bryan Smith, and welcome to Enlightened, Empowered, Evolved, where we educate, motivate, and liberate you through enlightening dialogues, empowering music, and evolving content. I know everyone's doing well, and everything is unfolding absolutely perfectly. I'm excited yet again because my next guest is went from tragedy to triumph. I'm all kinds of endeavors. I'm just gonna say what I'm inspired to say. All kinds of endeavors to successful businesses to an amazing best-selling author and just so much more that we're gonna hear about. But without further ado, allow me to introduce to you Michelle Renee. How are you doing today, Michelle?
Hello, I'm fantastic. How are you? Thank you so much for having me on your very, very special show. I love the title. I love all of your topics. I love the focus of it. So really just an honor to be here.
Absolutely. And allow me to reciprocate that by expressing that I believe that time is one of our most precious assets. And for you to decide to choose and to agree to spend some of your time here with me on Enlightened, Empowered, Evolved, I just want to extend my sincerest gratitude to you. Thank you very much for being here
Oh,
at this very present moment when you could have been anywhere else.
yeah, you're so welcome. It's really totally my pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's just get right into it. Can
Yeah.
you elaborate a bit on this heartfelt, just basically, like, I'm going to be real, scary ordeal that you've been through? Kind of give us a little insight. Because I know I love hearing stories, and this is a story.
Mm,
And yes, I'm telling everyone, brace yourself for this. Take it
yeah.
away, Michelle.
Well, I grew up for the first 8 years of my life in Boston, ended up in California. I grew up very, very poor, in a very, a rough household. And there was violence, there was a lot of things. I ran away when I was 15.
Mm,
And I ended up deciding by the time that I was 20 that the life that I was living was not the life that I really felt that I was meant to be living. And I really got that call. Talk about enlightened, empowered. I really felt I had a moment of enlightenment when I was 20. And I've had sort of several smaller ones as I was growing up, and I would end up by myself out in nature, just sitting there and thinking and playing with critters. I've always sort of been drawn to this very quiet, the quietness and sort of listening to things. And so for me, when I was 20, I had that sort of download that said, you don't belong here. You don't belong in this group. So I ended up
mm,
deciding that I was going to, after several other career attempts that just were not a fit for me, I decided I was going to go into banking. And I ended up
right.
over 13 years starting as a part time drive up teller, all the way up to becoming an assistant vice president for Bank of
Mm,
America, running sales teams, regional
wow.
sales manager. And then decided I didn't want to travel that much. I had become a mom by this time. I was a single mom by this time, and I was running a branch. And I ended up being home one night and getting my daughter ready, to go to bed and to get some homework done and all that good stuff. And suddenly we were sitting there and we heard a really, really loud noise coming from behind us. And when we sort of turned to look to see what this really loud, almost deafening sound was, we could only see three men, all dressed in black, masks, guns, you name it, rushing towards us. And before I
Oh,
could turn and really back towards my daughter, one of them had grabbed me by the back of the head, by the hair, and shoved me down face first onto the ground, face into the carpet. And
mm,
my daughter, I had no idea what was happening to her in that moment. And I found out later that these men had been stalking me at the bank and following me everywhere for about 2 months, planning this horrific home invasion, kidnapping, and ultimately bank robbery situation, scheme, whatever you want to call it, crime. Yeah.
wow. So I'm trying to get this straight, and I'm not trying to take you through this, but I'm just trying to gain a little bit more clarity. They wanted to you to go back to the bank and open it up.
Yeah, so they held us
Oh,
hostage all night for 14 hours and they
oh,
were
wow.
going over their plan multiple times. So this is why we're here. We've been following you. We've been seeing everything you do. We know where your daughter goes to school. We know where your best friend lives. We know where you go to when you went to the mall. We know when you last ate dinner at a restaurant down the street and drank red wine. That's how closely they tracked me. And it was, for this to be as sort of sophisticated as it was in terms of how much they knew about kidnapping, holding you hostage, saying all of these things and getting into your head on a very deep psychological level, was pretty sophisticated. It was not only terrifying, but it's and what they do to you, physically, and the
Mm,
fear and everything else that goes into that. But it's that sort of psychological manipulation that was a whole other piece that a lot of people don't really, talk about or understand that is happening in those situations when you're being kidnapped and held hostage for a long period of time.
mm. I'm sure most, if I can speak for for myself and probably for a multitude of others, yeah, I don't think that would be something that we could even imagine. That seems like something from a movie.
Yeah.
And wow, it's just amazing that you survived that ordeal. And I'm thankful for you and your daughter that you're
Yeah,
here.
they strapped bombs on us and told us
Oh
that I
my
had to go rob the bank or we were going to be murdered. And so they took my child from me in the morning and
Oh,
they duct taped
wow.
us up all night. They put her into a closet, duct taped with bombs on us, and they forced me to go rob the bank or they were going to murder us. So I ended
Oh,
up robbing the bank
wow.
and leaving there with a duffel bag that they had provided me
Right.
full of the money that had been in the vault,
Right.
and ended up giving it to the ringleader who was waiting out in my car in the parking lot with a walkie-talkie and a detonation device is what they told us it was, and guns.
Right.
And I didn't know what was happening to my child. I didn't know if I was ever going to see her alive again or what was happening, but I eventually, based on their instructions, I followed everything to the letter and ended up getting back to the house and finding her in the closet and
Mm,
running to the neighbors. And it was,
wow.
then a whole other part of the trauma and,
I can imagine.
the
I can't
eye-opening
imagine.
trauma of the justice system began. Yeah.
Absolutely. So did they end up getting caught?
They did. They did.
Oh,
There was a lot that they did not do as sophisticated as it seemed to have been and as thought out and planned out as it was. They made a lot of mistakes. And
mm,
it's because of those mistakes and because I don't think that they were really, for a lack of a better term and pun intended, I don't think they were banking on me being somebody who really remembered details about. I
mm,
am I'm high detail, and part of my job and why I was so successful is because I recognize people and I
mm.
remember things about people and details about their lives. And when they would come in, I would ask them, "Oh my gosh, you just had a grandbaby, or you just got back from vacation, or you
Wow.
just this, oh, I remember this, that, so for me to be high detail and remember certain things about them, the labels on their clothes, what they were wearing, every little thing, the sound of their
Wow.
voices, how tall they were compared to the tiles and the refrigerator in the kitchen. I was paying attention to a lot of details because when you're in that sort of a traumatic, violent situation, I think our minds, miraculously find ways to protect itself from completely shattering and breaking. And for me, really paying attention to those details gave me something else to, really focus on. And it's part of my personality anyway. So I was really able to give the police a lot of information and detail that I had remembered. And, one of them and his girlfriend had come into my branch and sat at my desk a
Mm.
couple of days before. And
So
I
you remember
recognized certain things about him and his voice and
the voice.
her
I
voice
was
on the
about to say that. Go
walkie-talkie. Oh
ahead.
yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you remember the voice.
Yeah.
They didn't encounter running into a superhero is what they didn't expect. And
Mm,
I just want to commend you, and I'm sure you've been commended numerous times for your bravery
thank
and your
you.
resilience, and your daughter as well. But I just want to say this here after listening to that uh, horrific but yet triumphant story is that I think, and I can't speak for everyone, but from my perspective, I think a lot of people would have, their mind wouldn't have been working at that particular moment as sharp as yours, but you remained calm enough that you were able to tap into your some of your superpowers, and that's amazing. Absolutely
Thank
amazing.
you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's funny because afterwards, just thinking about what your show is about and how important that is. I mean, coming out of the trauma and the PTSD and going through the healing, it took probably 2.5 years. We were in trauma therapy for 2.5 years, but it was really when we were told that we should probably get out of town and await the criminal trial to
Mm,
happen, that the
wow.
healing really began to kick in on my road trip to Alaska, which is what my memoir, 9 Days, is about. And I ended up following again that call in my soul that said, this is what I'm calling you to do. And
Mm,
on that road trip is really where the healing began and really where I began to make peace with my life more than I had the night of the actual kidnapping and being held hostage, because I didn't think we'd make it out alive. I had to make
mm,
peace with my past that night because I didn't think I would make it out alive.
wow.
14 hours is a long time to think about your life and your
Uh,
childhood and the
yes,
people that you labeled monsters in your life, that you need to make peace with a lot of things to
absolutely.
be able to sort of be ready to die. And that's really how I felt that night
Wow.
during the kidnapping and during the hostage situation. And afterwards, once I did survive and I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm still here. What am I going to do with the time that I have left? What am I going to teach my daughter now? How am I going to teach her how to get through this in a way where she's not hateful and she's not resentful and she's not angry and she's not, judging people of color, because these men were people of color. And I really wanted to make sure that whatever it was I was going to teach her by example was going to be the right thing. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And that was my
That's
entire focus. And so driving to Alaska, that's when it really started to kick in.
That's so powerful, and just so much as you were speaking, just about everything and what you're the morals and standards and the values that you're teaching your daughter. And that is, and I'm going to elaborate on something since you touched on it, but not too much.
Yeah.
Because it is a touchy topic, but I don't mind getting into a little bit of touchy topics. But in regard to that, really stood out to me when you said about the color, because oftentimes I have, in my perspective, people have labeled, you know, not only myself, but I see them labeling other people based on what a few um, actions of a few. And
Right.
I'll give you an example, and I can't make this up. I have a lot of watches. I love watches. Okay, so I take them to this shop. I'm hoping I'm using the correct term, but it's an Asian family that owns the shop. So
Mhm.
prior to me going in there the first time, they were robbed by
Um,
okay, black men. And
mhm.
so when I came in there, I can see that there was some nervousness in there. And then I got these tattoos and things too. Um, so I can see it. So I'm very inquisitive. So I did ask, like, I can notice a little bit of energy, like, nervous energy. Is
Mhm.
there a problem? I don't mean any harm. Is there a problem? And the man explained, what
Mhm.
had happened. And I said, yes, I understand that. I said, but you have to be very careful, or you should, for your own peace of mind, not to let the actions of, a certain person, of a certain color, have you blanket stereotype everyone. I said
100%.
because yeah, and then I broke it down to him. I said, so if another Asian man was to come in here and rob you, would you have prejudice against all Asians that come in? He said, probably not. I just said, I'm not here to criticize you, and I'm not getting angry or anything, because I probably would feel the same way. Maybe not, maybe so, but probably at this stage in my journey, I wouldn't, because I understand how things work, and that there's bad, and or what we consider bad, perceive as bad, in pretty much in any group. So
Everywhere.
yeah, everywhere. But
Yeah.
Yes, and especially the media really taps in on that, stereotyping certain groups as this, and I try not to pay
Agreed.
attention to that. But I just want to commend you again for speaking those wise words to your daughter and breaking that up, because that can't it can happen. And
Well, I mean,
you know what, transparent. I've been guilty of looking at people a certain way because of the way they look, or
well,
and then I have to tell myself, hey, hold on, never judge a book by its cover. But I think that's just embedded in our society, how people look, or it's like that in like I said, media. That's why I really don't watch the news.
me either.
No disrespect to
Yeah.
anyone that does keep up with that, but I know in my experience, it feels like it's just bombarding me with tragedy and division, and I tend to not want to.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
And the good thing about programming, which is what I'm hearing you say, we're programmed to, have these sort of judgments of people
right,
based on the filters that we have and the filters that we were raised with. What did
right,
society teach us? What did our parents teach us? What did our religion teach us? What
right,
have we heard? What have we witnessed that has shaped the way that we think about certain people?
right,
And for me, when it came to, and my father was a very prejudiced man. He was a very, very prejudiced man. He was really difficult to
right,
grow up with somebody that had that sort of mentality and
right,
that
right,
sort of mindset, and have to hide my friendships with people of color because I knew what that would mean at home if my dad found out. Like I literally grew up like that. And
right,
so for me, having this, such a bad taste from what my dad had done and the things that he would say, and I just personally I've just never understood it. I've
right,
never understood it on any level whatsoever. To me, I'm
right,
just colorblind, and
right,
I really wanted to make sure. And what you said, I've said over and over again. I actually think this is written in my book. I wanted my daughter to understand that it was never going to be okay to judge an entire race of people or
people,
gender of people or
right,
whatever you want to call it because of the actions of a few. I've said
right,
it over and
right,
over. You hit
right,
that so spot on. And I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I believe in that statement across the board in society in general. I want to
right,
see people as individuals. I want to look at this person in the eye. I want to know what their character is. I want to know what their values are. I want to be able to say, I like you or dislike
right,
you, or you're a fit for my life, or you're not a fit for my life based
absolutely,
on my personal experience with you. If I don't have personal experience with you and I don't know you, I'm
right,
not going to judge you.
right. And
Yeah.
that's amazing, and thank you for sharing that. And in my perspective, I've grown to really trust my intuition and my energy,
Yeah.
and that doesn't matter what the person, nationality the person is. If I feel a bad vibe, then I tend to listen to that. I do, and it's usually not wrong. Um, but I've been, for contrary to how you grew up, I grew up in a lot of diverse places, and which has contributed to me doing this podcast with just an array of people from around the world, and I'm comfortable speaking with everyone. It's no forced nothing, because I've been fortunate enough to travel to many countries, European countries, Latin countries, African countries, Indian countries. I've been so fortunate, and just to be able to absorb different cultures and see that
Oh, I love it.
everybody's not the same here that is in my little area where I grew up, or it's just different mentalities. But what I do find is that everybody wants uh to be valued and to have purpose and to be happy, even if it doesn't seem
Yeah.
like it. Even the guy that you see frowning, he wants to be happy, just haven't been able to find it. And that's why he comes across that way, abrasive or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well, this,
everybody wants to be happy. Even the person like that you mentioned, such as your father, he wants to be happy. He just,
Mhm.
in his mind, he feels justified in thinking the way he thinks. And I'm not making an excuse, but I'm just saying, as a studier of humanity and human behavior, I realize that. So even with that, a person like that, I wouldn't necessarily say, "Oh, you're like that, so I hate you too." No, no. There's some
Yeah.
understanding there that this person
Oh,
is like this because of
of this.
how they've
Right.
been brought up, how they've been cultivated, how they've been programmed. And it's hard to break out of what you identify yourself with and what you've grown up thinking about certain people. It's hard to break that. You have to
Yeah.
really want to, something has to speak to you from within, and you have to listen to it. And oftentimes we don't, from my
Yeah, and you
experience.
bring up something amazing. I am so fascinated by human behavior. It
Right.
is something, it's one of the reasons I ended up becoming a certified trauma practitioner. I really wanted to understand trauma not only from kind of a educational perspective and an intellectual perspective, but
Mm,
also obviously I know it very intimately from a personal perspective.
mm.
But human behavior and being fascinated by that, like what you just said, is what led me when I was on my road trip to Alaska. And the question kept coming up like, what happened to the people who did this to us
Right.
to make them do something like
Like
this?
that.
And
Yeah.
that question would not leave me alone. I am telling you, it just kept coming up and kept coming up. And I wanted to know the answer to that. I wanted to know what happened to these people. These are somebody's sons. These are somebody's
Yes.
brother. This is somebody's uncle, maybe. This is somebody's father, maybe.
Yes.
What happened to them
And
to
it,
make them take such a hard turn down the wrong road? And because of that question, and I think when people are going through trauma and going through healing and then they've had a difficult life, they continue to ask themselves, why me? Why me? I call that the why me trap. There is you that to me is the wrong question to be asking. We need to learn how to ask ourselves better questions that are going to lead us into healing, that are going to lead us down the path of resiliency, that are going to lead us down the path of emotional freedom.
I
And
agree.
for me, that question led me to ending up going to San Quentin State Prison and meeting them and their families,
On your
and
own,
two of
you
them. And
you were
it,
motivated to do that yourself?
so what started it was I ended up, my daughter and I wrote a letter to one of them. There was only
Hmm.
one of them that turned around at the sentencing and said he was sorry. And I
Hmm.
saw his humanity. I saw
Right.
his remorse. I saw something there with this person. I knew that this person was remorseful. And so I wrote a letter.
Right.
And so a lot of the things that they said in the house that night to me led me to believe and understand that they saw me as a spoiled, rich
Mm.
white girl, which is what
White.
they
Yeah.
told me.
Yes.
So
I
I
get
wrote
it.
him a letter and I said, I want you to know we're more alike than you think, than you ever
Right.
know. You didn't know me.
Right.
I grew up poor. I ran away. I was on drugs for years. I lived on the street.
Mm.
I came
Wow.
from a very violent background,
Wow.
and I I wanted him to know that we
Mm.
weren't as different as what they were saying we were or what they thought we were,
Absolutely.
because they saw a 2 month glimpse into my life that I
Mm.
worked really, really, really hard for, to
Absolutely.
get from where I came from to get to where I was. Took
Right.
so much grit, took so much hard work, took so much time, took so much everything. And I did
Right.
all of that as a single mother. And so I wanted him to know that. And I also said in the letter, I don't see you as a monster. And I hope someday you can also not see yourself as a monster. I'm standing again. I'm no longer angry. I'm no longer hanging on to anything negative attached to the situation. I'm teaching my daughter to do the same. And I hope someday you can do the same.
Let me hit a pause button right there
Yeah.
because, you know, I'm just beside myself listening to you. Where did you, if you could give us a small condensed version of it, because we're down to about 9 minutes, but
Okay.
where did you get all this? Uh, I don't even know how to sum it up in one word, so I'll use a few. Excuse me. Such a emotional in, patience, calmness, forgiveness. Just
Mm.
I'm gonna just throw out these words that I feel like you're the
Thank
essence
you.
of this emotional intelligence, this forgiving, this open mindset. Where did you get this from, coming from such dire straits as you did? Where did you get this from? Did you have some magic wizard mentor that instilled this? Where did you get this from? Because I would like to have that. I mean, I do have an aspect of that, but I would like to just know where. How did you develop that?
I am I'm a highly spiritual woman.
Okay.
I am very much about taking time to meditate. I take time
Yes.
for prayer. I write my feelings down, my emotions down. And in all of that, I take time to listen. And I've said this a couple of times here on this podcast, speaking with you, because one of the key things that has helped to guide me to where I am and come to a place of understanding, not only of my own life,
Mm,
not and asking the right questions, like you said. Instead of hating my dad, I started asking, you can call it divine, you can call it
right.
universe, you can call it God, you can call it whatever you want to call it. But
Absolutely.
I started asking, please help me see my dad how you see my dad. Please
Wow.
help me understand my dad differently than just the experiences and his anger and the only way he knew how to fight his way through life. Help me
Beautiful.
to understand.
Powerful.
Help me to see the men who did this to myself and my daughter. Help me to
Mm.
see them on another level. How do you see them?
See, that's what
And
I'm
then,
talking about. I'm
yeah,
sorry to butt in, but
that's
that's what I'm
okay.
talking. Where did you get that mindset to start doing that? I mean, you just naturally. I mean,
So
okay,
this is
go
the
ahead.
road trip I was on.
Go ahead.
I asked this question about my dad when I was pregnant with my daughter, because I
Okay.
wanted to have a different perspective of him and a
Right.
different relationship with him before I started raising her. So,
Okay.
and honestly, I think this is very much about my spiritual commitment and my
Mm,
spiritual depth.
okay.
All of this for me, I give every single bit of credit to my listening to what I call that inner voice and that inner call that we all have, but we
Yes.
don't all pay attention to it.
Right.
We don't nurture it. We don't
Right.
listen to it. It's there. Every single one of us has it. And
Right. I
until
agree.
we decide that we're going to sit down and we're going to carve out time every single day, I carve out time every single day to
Absolutely.
sit, ask questions, and listen. Sit,
Mm,
ask questions, listen. And you don't just, after you listen, you don't just go, okay, that was nice. No, everything in life is about action. That's why
right.
my
Right.
company that I have is called Verb Media Group, because it's about action. Every single thing in life that you want to achieve, whether it's just sitting and being still, guess what? You took action to make a decision to sit and be still and listen. So, nurturing that inner voice, nurturing that call, taking time for that, and to really begin to sort of self understand first
Mm,
and be radically, and I'm talking ridiculously radically honest
right.
with yourself
Right.
about yourself.
Yes.
That is number one. That is number one. And start
Wow.
writing things down and start really being curious and interested in your own understanding of who you are and your experiences, how they've shaped you, how to love it all. And then decide that you're going to pour that out into the world. And
Mm,
you want that in your relationships. You want that in terms of your understanding of other people and your experiences and even your
right.
traumas, because
Right.
every single thing we go through is meant to teach us something.
Right. Yeah,
And
I
if you're
resonate with
not
that
paying attention
so much.
and you're
Yes.
not listening, you're not going to get the lesson. So, what happens when we don't get the lesson? It keeps
Right. It
happening
keeps
over and over
happening.
until we get the
And it's going to
lesson.
start knocking louder and probably harder, and you're going to sink
Yeah.
further and further until you get it.
Yeah. And
That's a,
there's still some that I don't get. I don't want to say I'm
absolutely.
perfect. There's still some that
Absolutely.
I roll the dice sometimes still and go, okay, I'm going to give this a shot. I'm going to roll the dice, and darn it, it's the same lesson shows up. And I'm like, okay, what did I miss? I still need to work on this dark, shadowy corner in my heart. I still have this part of who I am and my experiences in my past that I still need to dig a little deeper and work on even more. And, there's always that. And I'm very curious about myself and what makes me tick, and I'm very curious about the world and people. And I think that's one of the biggest things that drives me is my level of curiosity and how much I trust spirit and the universe, and my
Mm,
spiritual
yes.
commitment in my life is the
Yes.
number one driver to everything in my life. My life as a mother, my life as a woman, my life as a friend, my life as
Mm,
somebody that's helping other people heal. The number one driver is that spiritual commitment, and my commitment also to being ridiculously honest.
wow, that is amazing. And thank you
Oh,
for sharing all that amazingness
you're
and
welcome.
just because you have such an amazing story. And I don't want to cut it short, but we have about 3 minutes. But how can, while we're here, so you help people get through, cultivate and get through their traumas. Am I correct? So if you were to give yourself a title, what are you again? I mean, you're a woman,
So
but
yes. So I own a business. I have other things going on, but I decided to really dive into becoming a trauma healing practitioner and became certified because I know a lot of people, therapists. I highly recommend people going to see a therapist or trauma therapist that's trained in therapy. But a lot of people want to have somebody that holds their hand to cross that bridge to the other side with them, that can look them in the eye and say, I really do get it. I've been there. And so I want to
absolutely.
be that person for people. I am that person for people. And I have a podcast called Soul Wide Open. I've written two books. My latest book is called 9 Days Living with My Soul Wide Open After Violent Trauma.
By
I'm
Michelle
very,
Renee.
yeah, by Michelle Renee. I'm very, very proud of it. It's fantastic. And I'm getting ready to release a third book this year that's all about healing as well. So it's really, again, it's that calling in my life. I wake up every day and go, what am I going to do today that is in the direction of what is right, and what is my purpose, and what is my calling? And that's where, so far, this is where all of this has led me.
Wow, amazing. Do you have a
Thank
link that you could share with us audibly here? I will be sure and incorporate whatever links that you sent me into
Yeah.
the description. But while we're here, audibly, could you share a link that people can find you?
Sure. They can go to michelle-renee.com, or they can find me on Instagram and follow me on Instagram at underscore Michelle Renee underscore. I post a lot over there. I like people to see what I'm doing in my healing work and my videography work and in my personal life, so people can really understand that I'm very authentic. I'm very real. I love connecting with people, and you'll get a taste of sort of my life over there on Instagram, and definitely go to my website, michelle-renee.com.
Wow, thank you. And thank you again, Michelle, for just
Thank you.
imparting us with such amazing, vivid, detailed story of your life. And you're just amazing. I'm going to label you the superhero.
Thank
Remember that superhero
Oh,
podcast I had?
superhero.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, you mean Michelle? Yeah, the superhero. So, yes. And thank you, everyone, for watching and or listening. Be sure to hit the Enlighten Empowered Evolved website, 333 Empower, and hit the like button, subscribe, leave comments, concerns. Thank you, everyone. I love you. Enlighten Empowered Evolved. See you soon.